So up next is reflections on ERG life cycle and the corresponding strategies for building and sustaining an effective Pan-Asian ERG. When remember we did the survey, this was the number one topic of interest selected for this forum from the survey respondents. So I'm going to invite onto the stage the panelists and the moderator for our first panel discussion. The moderator is Mai Tan, Chief People Officer of Ethic. She's the author of a book called Come Into My Office, Stories from an HR Leader in Silicon Valley. She has been the first people leader at 9 different technology startup companies and formerly led the people team at Kickstarter and Trulia, among others. Mai was named to the list of the top 50 outstanding Asian Americans in business, top 50 most powerful women in technology, top 50 tech leaders, top 20 tech trailblazers. Mai?
Good morning. Happy Friday. I have our friends with us on the panel too, so this isn't just about me. Nice to see you. How are you doing? Good. We are in the penthouse of Asia Society. Have you realized that? I've never been here before, but this is lovely. You'll see me take a look. I'm old school in that I like to write with a pen and paper, but then I find that I always need my phone, so I'm inspired to be here in front of you. I wrote down some notes already, inspired by this morning's speech already, but this is the first ever event from the Asian American Business Development Center that is specifically geared toward ERGs. That is incredible because we had Ceramont do a series of studies and surveys, and so this is actually for you. This is in response to what you've given us in terms of your data. So cheers to John Wang again for setting us up to be the pioneers of the future. Today's topics are all about you, but after hearing the research, I will tell you, who knows what the bamboo ceiling is? Raise your hands. Okay. Almost everybody here, we're still struggling to break it. And I see it and I sense it. The studies and survey data tells us it. So we're here to help each other. And then finally, you're a good-looking audience. I haven't seen so many Asians. As you can imagine, I'm on my 10th startup now. I just started like 2 weeks ago. And so I'm drinking from the fire hose, but usually my audience is very homogenous. And so it's wonderful to be in front of you. I will try to do you proud. But that is the context for why we're in front of you. This is about how do we sustain ERGs for the long run. And you have 3 leaders here who have really made strides in their own companies. I'm going to let them introduce themselves, but Nan and Adrian are here. And please ask questions. We have a series of your questions that you already sent to us, so we're going to officially and formally talk about those things, but please feel free to ask questions along the way. This is for you. So I'm going to turn the mic over to Nam to introduce himself first.
Hi everyone, my name is Tan Nam Vodui. I go by Nam. My parents are from Vietnam, and I was born in France, was raised and grew up in France. I came to New York City about 20 years ago. I work in the wines and spirits, Moet Tennessee, which is the alcohol division of LVMH. And I founded the ERG at Moet Tennessee in 2018, and it's been a great ride. And I just want to say I'm very excited today. Anytime I'm at an event of AVDC, I always say I didn't have role models. I couldn't look at leaders that looked like me, and it was difficult. But when I'm in a room like this, you are my role models. You are my heroes, and that's powerful.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Nang Nguyen. My pronouns are she, her, and for the visually impaired, I am an Asian woman. I'm wearing a blue jacket, and I'm really happy to be here. And I just absolutely love John, like we all do, for bringing us together. He's a great convener, and Suba Berry is just the most incredible thought leader. She comes up with some fresh, innovative research all the time that we all benefit from. I am Vietnamese American. I came over as a refugee. I'm a mother. I am a business owner. I'm a corporate citizen. And I spent the bulk of my career in international development. So the story with me was we left Vietnam on the last day of the war. I was only 4 years old. And we resettled in Louisiana. So my friends joke that I am the Cajun Asian. It was a very interesting upbringing, as you can imagine. And the joke in my family is Dad dramatically gets us, out of Vietnam, only to have his middle child go back to Vietnam and the region to spend decades helping to rebuild those countries, emerging from conflict, right? So when you live overseas, you see things about your own country that other people might not notice. And I just felt that there were just so few Asian leaders, and it really impacted me in how I showed up in my succeeding roles when I moved back to the U.S. And I've been at Asia Society, and it's so nice to be here on stage because I was always in the background organizing. But starting with COVID, I started at an organization called Ascend, and I directed the research and thought leadership. And what drew me to that organization was that it was a data-driven approach to looking at Asian representation in the workforce, and we saw that there were so few leaders. Asians were most likely to be hired, but least likely to be promoted. And so, with that and what we saw during COVID, the scapegoating and the anti-Asian hate, it was a woke time for our community because as a group, we are not really savvy or plugged in or nationally engaged in the conversation about race, which is so binary, right? But that's changed, I feel like, in the past 3 years. So I'll stop there. Thank you.
It's amazing to be here. My name is Adrian Kwok. My family is originally from Hong Kong, but I grew up in Toronto, Canada. I moved to the States for college. I joined McKinsey in 2011, and I've been there ever since. My day job is I'm an associate partner. I serve clients on employee experience, but what really gets me up in the morning is I founded and have kind of built McKinsey's ERG for the last 10 years, Agents at McKinsey. We're now 3,000 people globally across more than 20 offices. I also co-lead McKinsey's research on Asian American issues and co-founded and started our leadership development program for underrepresented groups, the Connected Leaders Academy, which some of you may have heard of or been a part of. For me, it's very similar to you, Maya. I think it's just amazing to be in person here with everyone. I think the work that we do sometimes feels lonely, and it's such a great reminder to be in a room with people who are kind of pointed in the same direction, and having a chance like this to share ideas with this amazing panel is something I'm really looking forward to. So with that, Maya, I think you're going to take us away.
I am. I'm going to get some audience engagement so that your energy can start flowing. But how many people here have an ERG in their company already? Can you raise your hands? Only half the room. Okay, and how many of you are leading those ERGs? Okay, maybe only 10 hands are going up. So we're going to do this work together, right? Funny that the exhibit right now is called Comparative Hell. But we're going to do this together, and we're going to create heaven for ourselves, okay? All right, so we're going to go right into your questions. And so I'm going to ask Nam and Adrian, how do you create representation in the ERG leadership so that the interest of your members are best represented?
You want to go first, or I can?
I'll go. First of all, elephant in the room. We are talking about Pan-Asian ERGs, and we are 3 Vietnamese American people. And I mean, more seriously, our ERG is very small. We started very organically. There's maybe 30 members, not
You'll get there.
Yeah. If 100% of the employees are Asian, yes. And one topic that we've been struggling with is bringing along with us our South Asian employees, right? And it's something that when we were preparing this session, we put it out there because I was like, I wish we had a South Asian panelist here because that would be very rich and that would address some of the issues that my ERG is struggling with. And we have to say that we tried, and because of scheduling and because of people's availability, we're not able to get more diversity in the panels. But I would say that for me, the ERG is small, and so it's very organic. And whoever is in the ERG and whoever is engaged, we have issues with engagement, period. So engagement from different cultures and different representing different places of the world is even more difficult. Personally, I would say in my ERG work, the most critical thing I've learned working with my South Asian colleagues was allyship, and working with my own biases and having my own learning of a different culture, and bringing my South Asian colleagues into the ERG in some way or another. And to me, the lesson is, one, you don't need to know and be part of the culture to be an advocate, right? If you feel that someone or a group is being minimized or not represented well, you can step up and you can say something. That's something I learned because I always thought that I was only allowed to talk about who I relate to very directly. So that's one thing I learned, and that I practice in my ERG.
Yeah, it's really well said. The thing I would say just to start is I think it's so important because if you think about the mission of our ERG, all the ERGs we lead, it's in the service of inclusivity. And if anything we do is counter to that mission, it's actually quite destructive. And so we have what we call a big tent philosophy, which is that anyone who identifies as Asian is welcome within Asians at McKinsey. And that doesn't just include country of origin. It includes, we have members who are an eighth Asian. We have people who are not Asian but are married to an Asian spouse and have an Asian child. I met a member recently who grew up in Asia. He's white, but identifies as Asian. And we say, it's so much easier for us to say everyone is welcome as opposed to here's the list of the people who are welcome. And we can say it all we want, but I think it's important that we recognize that every time we speak to an audience, they may not have heard it before. And so for us, repetition is super, super important. We had a Lunar New Year celebration virtually for several hundred colleagues recently. We played a video at the beginning where we asked one of our global sponsors to actually just make that message clear, because we knew that there were going to be dozens of people in the audience who hadn't heard me say it or him say it before. And the other thing I keep in mind at McKinsey, and I think at every organization it's slightly different, is country of origin isn't the only vector by which there's diversity within the ERG. One of the great challenges of running a Pan-Asian ERG is there's also the dimension of when people's families move to the United States or to North America in general, and people often see that as a difference between them and their colleagues. For us, there's a difference between the professional development needs of our consulting staff versus those who are not in the consulting field, right? And that's another thing that when we think about our programming, we try to be cognizant of as well. And the last thing I'll say on it is, this panel is I love the point you made. Oftentimes, like people will listen to what you say, but what they'll see is what you put in front of them. And so we try to be very thoughtful whenever we announce that there's going to be a committee focused on something, that it's representative in the dimensions that we care about, by gender, by country of origin, by role within the organization, so that people see it. There was a moment for me that really crystallized it, which was 2 years ago. We host a big event for our summer interns every summer, and it was the first year that Asians at McKinsey had held an event. And we had 100 people come, 98 of whom were Southeast Asian and East Asian. And I received an email afterwards from one of the South Asian members saying I wasn't sure if I belonged there, if that was somewhere that it was appropriate for me to be. And I sent it around and I said, this is exactly the thing that we need to make sure doesn't happen ever again. And there are active things that we can do to make sure that doesn't happen.
Yeah, diversity means many different things to many different people, so this is the thread that we all have to bear. I'm going to turn a little bit into like Generation Z. How many of you are part of Generation Z in the audience? Okay. Only about 2 or 3 hands I see. Okay, don't be embarrassed. It's okay. I'm sorry. Yeah, woo! I'm sorry if that was ageist. I'm in HR, so hopefully you can give me a little grace. But all right. So this one's for Nam and Nam. Maybe you can explain like. Generation Z is about to skyrocket to 60% of the workforce over the next decade. So they don't like being pigeonholed into a specific category. So in your world, how do you see intersectionality playing out in attracting younger employees to actively participate in your ERG? And I'll start with you first.
Thank you. And I did not, in my introduction, let you know what my role is. Currently, I'm with Citi, and I'm the Global Diversity Advisor, and I lead the Asian Heritage Dimension. So, and we are a very global bank. So, with that, that is a very good question. Intersectionality. I gave you an introduction about my background. We are not single-dimensioned. We're multi-dimensional. I'm Jewish. You wouldn't see it if you looked at me, but you know there are a lot of things about me that that maybe my colleagues can't appreciate just on the surface. But having these different dimensions at work right now, different ERGs that represent various groups. At Citi, we have 10 dimensions. And there are 2 more that are being created. And this is on a global scale. And for me, right now, when you think about communities, ERGs are really about building communities. We know how important that is. The work of every ERG advocate is about making those connections. And so we have the DEI piece, right? And also the B, belonging. It's diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. And I'm sorry, I'm going to quote a Bain study that showed that Asian men, 16% feel included. Asian women, 20% feel included, right? So the work of ERGs is still very important, but we want to get to that space where everyone can be their authentic selves, right? And so I think the intersectionality piece is so important. So for instance, we just hosted a Pride event, co-hosted with the Asian Heritage, and also Family Matters. And so a lot of collaborative work that's happening in that play, a lot of best practices that are being shared. But you know, right now for me, when I look at ERGs in the community that we're bringing, think about concentric circles, right? We're all in a big circle. We're part of this larger community. But it's necessary to have these smaller communities because we do need a space where we can discuss, issues that are pertinent to our group, right? And think about the overlapping circles. Eventually, we would want to get to a place where we don't have those circles and we just have one big circle. But that's going to take time. And so, the intersectionality piece, I think, is very, very important because, we want everyone to be authentic. And this is what Erica says. We don't want you to bring your whole selves to work. Maybe leave some of it at home. But the authenticity, though, it's that you need to feel like you belong somewhere. And we know that belonging is so important to retention. Okay, which is the business imperative behind DEI.
Now.
Yeah, so I'm not sure I have a very intelligent answer to that, but I would say that the generation piece definitely in our ERG this week we were introducing ourselves, new members, etc. And I said I've been with the company for 22 years because I started as an intern and I've always worked at this place. And we went around and someone said I've been alive almost less time than Tannam has been with this company. Okay. So yes, the generation piece. I would say that, again, we're very small. We do things very organically. What we've tried to do is to have a type of leadership that is not when we started, it was the 3 founders, me and 2 people. We were doing everything, and then the other people were not very involved, and it's like always the 3 people who do the work, and I think you have that dynamic often in ERGs. And what we did is that a year and a half after we founded, we triggered something. I stepped down, and I said, I don't want to. I want to leave the space for someone else, right? And it was forcing very early in the life of our ERG some kind of succession planning and opening the door for someone else to step up. And I think the generation piece is more in terms of like development, right? We push we tell the stories of how getting involved in ERG is actually good for your career. I'm putting it on my resume, right? Like what you do, you organize an event, you communicate with different departments. That's skill that you can use in your workplace. That's a network that you can use in everything you do, and that can further your career. So that piece, I think, brings people, younger people, in the fold. And I think in terms of not generational, but intersectionality in general, again, the way we try to be very inclusive, very authentic, very supportive, having a safe space, etc., invites people to join. We have members who are biracial, multiracial, and belong to different ERGs. And it's not a competition, but they told us like they participate more in our ERG because of the tone and the people we are. And I think because we're such a small ERG, the people make the ERG rather than a charter or principles or laws, etc., which is good, which is also not good if you don't have the people. But where we are, I think, is pretty good.
Okay.
May I add to that
Yes,
really
of course.
quickly? I did mention this, but at Citi, so we're undergoing an ERG transformation. So we have replaced affinity networks with what we call the inclusion networks. And the idea is that you don't have to self-identify with a certain group because we all are multidimensional. You can join based on your interest and based on your desire to learn more and become an ally. Not even an ally, but then an advocate, right? So that I think is a very key piece in just building that community.
Yes, advocating allyship. And just stay curious. It's amazing when you ask for help or when you share something about yourself, it opens up new doors and windows for you. So I'm going to keep going. We have 4 more questions, and so I'll give you a chance to kind of break us from the formal questions. But this next one, Adrian and Yan. Okay. ERGs evolved from social or cultural clubs into groups focused on providing professional career development, facilitating mentoring, and sponsorship. How do you balance social and business aspects of the ERG's purpose, as in awareness building, cultural celebrations, networking, focusing on business impact? How do you do all of that?
Yeah, I can start. Well, to be clear, first thing I'd say is I think the happy hours and the celebrations and the parties, those are super, super important. For us, they're important because they're the way in which we make the broader organization aware that we exist. We get signups for people who aren't aware that we have an ERG. Around Diwali and Lunar New Year, it's a way of sharing our culture with people who didn't grow up celebrating those holidays. I also fundamentally believe it's actually the best way to form organic mentorship relationships. We do the matching and kind of the hubs and that sort of thing too, but I believe that real chemistry is created when people are, outside of the office and doing stuff together. So I think that stuff is super, super critical. Oh, and also like when people first show up at McKinsey, it gives them a familiar community and home, right? And that's so important, I think, for building inclusion, especially when people are new to a company. That said, I think we're selling ourselves short if we say that is the sole mission of our ERG. All we do is kind of like build that community. And I think every organization will think about this differently, but to share our experience, a couple years in, we brought in our mandate to not just be about building community, but professional development and then external impact as well. So professional development, one thing that we heard from our members were it's harder at McKinsey to find people who look like me, think like me, grew up like me. And there are a lot of career development happens in informal ways, conversations with people who have been there before. There's a lot of unspoken rules in how you advance your career. And so we made it our mission to make sure that we could get that information from the people who had it into the hands of the people who needed it. And so now we have an entire pillar of our mission that's all around professional development. And then the final one is the newest one, but it's how do we as an ERG have an impact in the broader community that is unique to our organization. Back in the day, the way that we would have impact as McKinsey was, through direct donations, but also doing pro bono consulting work. Our ERG more recently has realized there's other things we can do. McKinsey is very good at leadership development. We do it with all our clients. Why don't we just provide that, right, to a broader network of people that need it? And so now we have a leadership development program that we provide free of charge, right, to anyone who's from the Black community, Hispanic Latino community, and the Asian community. What are we also good at? We're good at numbers and research. So a couple years ago, we started a research arm, and now we've put out a number of research articles that some of you may have read. Bain does the same, but it's something that, like, in conversation with people, I'm always trying to push people to say, like, what is the thing that your organization is uniquely qualified to do to have an impact in the broader community? And if we all kind of collectively point in that direction with our unique talents, I think it'll be a much better outcome for everyone.
Yeah, Adrian just really hit all the right notes. And I would add, so ERGs are the vehicles of execution for DEI, right? I mean, these are the grassroots, connections. I think someone mentioned it earlier. That's where you know how your employees are feeling. It's so important. And we know that when employees are satisfied, happy, content, feel like they belong, they will stay at the company. They will be productive. Your attrition rate will be low. We know that attrition costs companies so much money, right? So, and resources. And so it's that piece. But also, at Citi, DEI is embedded into everything that we do, and it is a business imperative, right? And especially with our ERGs, so well organized. So the way it's structured at Citi is that our top leaders, this is Jane Fraser's immediate team, are co-chairs of each dimension. So I, for instance, work very closely with the two most senior Asian leaders at Citi, Anand Selva, Ida Liu, on a regular basis. We meet on a regular basis with all of our ERG leaders, and it's just really important to have that space, not only for professional development, growth, progress, but it's creating that relationship where you can have the mentorship, the sponsorships. I mean, we have 7 cups of chai that came out of our one of our ERGs that's now replicated in the rest of all the other chapters, where it's these connections because it takes you out of your silo, like your work. Asian Americans, like the stereotype is that we keep our heads down. We don't we don't go out of our ways to make those, we're worker bees to make those connections. Well, ERGs and the way that our Asian colleagues have showed up have dispelled that myth, right? I mean, it's being visible in the company, and it's having the leadership reflect who we are, our demographics, and that's what we're striving for. And ERGs give our employees opportunities to exercise their leadership skills, whether they're moderating a conversation or speaking at events. I think these are really great skills that are learned through these vehicles.
Great. Who here likes public speaking? Raise your hands. Okay, maybe 8 people in the room.
More than you thought.
I just wanted to take a moment. It's really hard to be up here in front of you. I don't think you realize this, but I think they're doing a wonderful job. So I just wanted to take some time to kind of give them a hand. It's like the halfway point of our panel, and so I want to make sure we're all feeling good and energized. The next question's a little bit more on a serious note. Adrian and Yang. Okay, recent years, there's been a heightened imperative for ERG groups. We just came out of a pandemic. There's a lot of social and political unrest and a lot of AAPI hate. So these are the new headlines. How do you empower your ERG leaders to address current and sometimes controversial or perhaps political topics in the workplace? And what does your strategy include to evolve it to kind of be a more serious or to play a more critical role in educating other employees and not just be about career development and engagement? I'll start with you, Nan.
Yes, I mean, this topic is just really fires me up. I joined, like I said, ASCEND at the start of COVID, and when we saw the anti-Asian hate, I think irrespective of who you are, I think the hate affected all Asians, regardless of geography, generation, political orientation, et cetera, et cetera. And it was this time where you had to really think about Asians in America and what our role in place was. And I felt that ERGs were such great vehicles for organization. It's about organization. And I know that groups like AAPDC, Saramount, these organizations, ASCEND, Asia Society, you bring people together and you create a safe space. And for me, I never grew up around the dinner table talking about race or realizing it, but when you create that space where people are actually sharing what they're feeling, how they feel when they're aging, their parents are walking down the street, how vulnerable they feel, living in a multi-generation household and having one of the family members work in the medical profession during the height of COVID. I mean, these are really heightened fears that aren't, you need to have a way to express them and to make the people, your leadership, understand how you're showing up at work and what's affecting you when you show up at work. And it was so interesting to hear all the stories that were shared. So when someone says, yes, I was mocked as a child because of my name, and then you hear, oh yes, that was my experience, I thought it was so powerful to have that space where everyone could share what they were feeling, and there was a commonality in the themes that were raised that I thought was so powerful, and so it made people aware that, look, we're better as a community. And look, Asian Americans are not a monolith. There are over 40 ethnic groups, over 20 languages. So I think the more stories that we tell about our backgrounds, our experiences, I think we will get more empathy, and people will understand what we're feeling when we ask to be heard and seen in the workplace and to be advanced and to say, no, we're not a model minority. We we are hardworking, but we deserve to be leaders as well. And so I think that is the important part, is that we dispel these myths and that other people perceive of us that have impacted our professional advancement. So,
Adrian?
It's well said. I have so many thoughts on this one too, and I don't know if I can be structured about it, but I think it has become a responsibility for our groups to meet the moment when these things happen, as tragic as they are. And like the thing that I've learned over the last 2 years is every member of our ERG needs something that's slightly different, and it behooves us to kind of do a variety of things that meet people where they are. So I'll give a couple examples. So the thing that I needed after Atlanta spa shootings was actually to feel seen as a member of a group that traditionally hasn't gotten sympathy from the broader community when things like this happen. And so the Friday after the shooting, our ERG sent out a Zoom link to the entire company. Anyone could show up. We said we were going to have a 5-minute moment of silence for the victims. And I remember being moved to tears just by seeing the number of non-Asian people that showed up. And it was that moment that made me realize, like, I had kind of been discounting my own identity or my validity as a member of society up until that moment, and being there with these people who were showing that they cared in a very kind of visible but easy for them sort of way was very meaningful for me. During COVID, one thing that we realized was it was fantastic for ERG growth because we were able to have these events with like 400 people, but it was also an incredibly lonely time for people, particularly that were new to McKinsey. So we realized a thing that we really needed to do was create a community for people that otherwise were not finding it on their teams or in the industry practice that they might have joined at McKinsey. More recently, what I found is that, similar to what you were sharing, Nan, people outside of work may not have groups of people that they are commonly speaking to about these issues, and we can provide that to them. So we have I hate to call it a playbook because it suggests that it's going to happen over and over, but we now have a playbook where after tragedies happen, we set up listening sessions where anyone can show up. You don't have to share, you don't have to be on camera, but it's there for you if you don't have another space like that in your life, right? To find closure and other people that are sharing the moment. And the final one, which is also relevant to me, is, so I shared in my intro, I didn't grow up in the US, I grew up in Canada. So I wasn't familiar growing up with the killing of Vincent Chin, with the riots in Koreatown following the Rodney King shooting. Things like that were not rooted in my, I guess I can now call it an Asian American identity. And so when the spa shooting happened, it didn't hit me in the same way that it hit people that I was talking to. And what I realized I needed out of that, and a lot of other members of our ERG needed, were ways of learning about the history of Asians in this country. And so we set up, we brought in a University of Michigan professor who was knowledgeable about it to kind of take us through a session. And there are a variety of other things that people need that we can bring them, but the mindset of like it's not like a one-size-fits-all answer in these moments, and trying to take that broad-based approach has worked well for us, at least so far.
Yeah, we're doing a lot with our communities and to our communities. Yes, go ahead.
I just ask a question because I think certainly that's interesting. I think it's great the company created ERG for Asian American or different to be part of that. I'm just wondering how much senior leadership really aware of the ERG's need, how much of the interaction they have or support directly to ERG. Are the ERG just work on its own because company allow it, but then does the senior leadership really involved? And how do we get them to be more aware of it?
May I answer that question? I think it's how you structure the ERGs. So for instance, at Citi, I mentioned that the very top echelons of Citi, you have co-leads who are from Jane's team who work regularly with ERG leaders. So for instance, a few weeks ago, when we were going to celebrate the Lunar New Year and send out this celebratory memo, the Monterey Park shootings happened. And it was our executive management team, non-Asians, who pushed to have a memo come out to recognize what happened, and the swiftness and it was remarkable. And that happened on a Sunday. We spent 10 hours on that Sunday, trying to create messaging that would comfort our employees. So I think it's very important to involve leadership at all levels. And I'll say only just for Asian heritage, we have the two co-leads in our steering committee are the heads of Mindy Mercado, who is non-Asian. She's an ally and an advocate. She's the head of U.S. The branch banking. So we have all these senior leaders that show up for us who understand the issues and who want to be that conduit of information sharing and education.
We have to train our senior executive teams because it's not a muscle that they may have had traditionally, and we have to fight for our group. Like I think about McKinsey set up a Black Leadership Academy before it's set up an Asian Leadership Academy, but following the Black Leadership Academy, we said, why not us as well? You look at the representation of Asians at the C-suite, it is also terrible, right? If we're going to make this commitment to one community, why wouldn't we make it to every community? And we did the same for the Hispanic community as well, and we're launching other academies similarly. But people won't think of these things unless we ask for them. And
Exactly.
when we ask for them, we need to come with the full force of every Asian that's in an executive position at our companies, and don't stop asking until we receive what we need.
And Suba's research said it in the beginning, where only, was it like 8% of folks had anybody perhaps of a different background in their networks. So we have a lot more work to do in building allyship, and it is a shame because the work falls on us to do it. But if we don't do it, it's not going to happen, and that's the hard part of climbing this together. I will say that in my career, I've been the executive sponsor of every single diversity initiative because I'm typically the only one with dark hair at the executive table, probably most likely the only female, and for sure the only one under 6 feet tall. And you laugh at the last one, but the interesting thing is when I'm looking and trying to have a conversation with somebody who's 6'3", and I'm barely 5 feet in heels, that power dynamic is very real because I'm looking up. I am barely in their line of sight. So sometimes we'll pass each other in the hallway, they won't see me. Or sometimes they'll get me mixed up with, somebody else that happens to look like me and is petite like me. So these are the little moments that add up to the big moments, which is the lack of, not seeing, so you can't be it. And I think, I hope it propels you. I hope it motivates you, because this is the real hard work that is underneath everything that we try to celebrate, everything that we try to bring awareness to. But it's still an uphill battle, so we still have more work to do. Does that answer your question, John?
And if you're an Asian woman, the numbers are even lower, right? And you're facing the bamboo ceiling and the glass ceiling. And the numbers are just abysmal. So there's so much more work to be done.
Any questions? Sure, yes.
Thank you. Thank you so much, first of all, for coming here today and offering this time.
Could you stand up, introduce yourself?
This is a moment of leadership. Yes,
Right.
you can do it. You can do it.
No, I don't mind.
Yep.
I usually don't need a mic, so does this work?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We can hear you.
My name is Liz. Thank you so much for being here today. I think it's just, I echo a lot of the sentiment that you've shared all in the panel, just being here and sharing ideas. So I'm curious, and this is actually like a direct tangent to what you were saying, but this is the hard work, but I think we would be remiss if we don't acknowledge that it's unpaid work.
Yeah.
So as much as I want to put our pedal to the metal, what are some ways that you guys have been able to find this sustainable? I think Nan had mentioned, making sure that you're making ways for others to join so that they can also be leaders of the organization themselves, but what about for yourself personally, and then as you think more broadly across the organization?
Nam, do you want to take that? We haven't heard from you in a while, so I'm going to pick on you.
So the question is about, it's unpaid work, right? And how do you yourself manage the fact that you want to do this, but it's unpaid, right? For me, I'm very, it might sound negative, but I'm very selfish, which is that I won't do things if it doesn't benefit me, because I know if it benefits me, I might turn those stats around. I might be the boss, right? And that's what I'm betting for, because if I cannot see someone like myself at a CEO level, I might have to be that person, right? And so I'm very selfish with what I do, which is that selfish, right? Which is that the ERG, co-leading, etc. It serves my career. It advances my career, helping younger employees, etc. I do that because I want to do it, but it's also stuff that I say in interviews and when I build a narrative about my personal brand, right? So that's how I justify it, because if it benefits me, I don't mind spending my Friday night, writing a communication or something, because I know it will benefit me. So a little bit of an answer that's not like rosy, but I said that because it's a fight. It is a fight, right? The stats are all backwards. We're not going to get anywhere by being just positive and nice and right. And so, and that's something that I try to use that energy. It's not negative energy. It's anger. You know, like when there's crime against Asians, I'm angry, right? That anger, I turn it into ambition. I turn it into painting the picture of me, you, us, there.
Can I add, the burnout is real, and it is unpaid, and I hope it is not unrecognized work. And so what we try to do is to make sure to recognize all of our ERG leaders in global communications. It's so important. And to give these leaders who are volunteering their time access to leaders, other leaders in the company. Now that access is key. You have to think about what the motivators are. We're trying to, in terms of performance evaluation, if you're involved in an ERG in a certain role, include that because it matters. You know, I think you have to create some incentives, right? Because the work can be really taxing, especially at a time when the community just needs some care and, you know, there's so much hurt. And so the way we've done it to make it sustainable is that we have 2 chairs so that, you know, because you have your day job, right? And it's not, you know, the case where you can actually, you know, do everything. So you need to lean on someone else. But the fact that my position even exists shows you that the Chief Diversity Officer at Citi is incredible, her vision, right? So I'm always supporting these leaders and making sure that they're okay, because I think that check-in is very, very important. And we're being more strategic. We're not, you know, creating many events. We're being very focused on collaborating and doing more intersectional work, and so lesser, you know, so that the burden isn't on just one group, but that we do it as a group. I hope that helps to answer.
And just really quickly, I will tell you, because I've been the executive sponsor, I pay bonus payments at the end of the year because it shouldn't be unpaid work.
Yeah.
It is work that's furthering things in your own company. So you have to find, you have to find people like me.
Yes.
And you know, I've been scrappy startup land, 10th startup. So part of this is I'm creating the new path forward. You don't have to do things the same way they've been done. You can actually go to your people leaders and say, look, I want to do this work. This work benefits the company in terms of brand positioning. So why don't you consider allocating a portion of your budget to reward this good work, because it's underwater, can't see it. And I'm not good with that, especially because I see a lot of diverse folks, and I hate to use that term, but a lot of minorities that just keep doing this. They're fighting the fight, but they don't have the allyship, and it goes unnoticed, and it's unpaid. So not okay with me, but you can do this. Okay, we only have one last question, and it's about like the do's or don'ts. But I want to, since we're already on an audience roll, like
I think there was
raise
an
your
audience
hands.
question
Yeah,
back
I've seen
right.
2 somewhere.
Oh,
I actually had
sorry.
a question. Hi, my name is Nicole. I'm one of the leaders for our Asian ERG at Turner Construction, and we're kind of new to this, so thank you for having us. I'm here with my partner, Ivy. She's also a co-lead here. So my question to the 3 of you guys, thank you guys so much for your inspiring, motivating stories about sustaining ERGs, is the fact that the 3 of you guys come from different backgrounds and countries. You guys have experience growing up in different areas, Canada, Vietnam, and Southeast Asia, and France. Has this shaped your view in helping ERG efforts in America here?
Adrian, I know you have some thoughts.
Well, first of all, thank you for being here and for what you're driving at Turner. It's tremendous, and we need more people like you who are from the grassroots starting new ERGs. It has shaped my view, but I always pause myself to make sure that what I'm doing is not building the ERG that I want, but the one that's best for all of our members. And so like the thing that I think about is how do we make sure that the leadership group is representative of the different pockets of employees that we want to serve. I gave the example earlier of, like, I'm not familiar with the history of Asian Americans in the US, and so we have people on our leadership team who their families have been here for a generation or two more than mine has. I also feel like in, growing up in Canada, maybe there's less of a need there, just given, the nature of, how multiculturalism is viewed versus in the US. But I also think of, Asians at McKinsey as a global ERG as well. We're present in basically every country that Asians are in the minority. And so I guess my non-answer to your question is it is shaped by that, but I try to not let it, have too much of an influence.
Nam, I saw you trying to say.
Yeah. So I would say, just a quick story. When I grew up in France, I would introduce myself and I would say, my name is Tannam Vaudouy, and people would be like, oh man, there's too many letters, doesn't sound very French. And I came to the US 20 years ago, and I would say, my name is Tannam Vaudouy, and people are like, are you French? Right, so the very same thing that I would say, which is quintessentially me, my name, would portray a different identity in two different places. Yeah. And I say that because, yes, like the way I grew up shaped who I am and what I care about, etc., etc. And the reason why I'm involved and I care about everything here that what we talk about is shaped from that, right? What I would add to it, though, so I would say that my quest for my own identity shapes a lot of what I do and a lot of my career too. I could, if I was a consultant, I would put a chart between like how much of my identity I am, how proud I am of who I am, and my career trajectory. And I would say that doing this quest helped me in my career. When I could put a name and words and a community around who I am, which is, yes, French, Vietnamese, American, a bit of everything.
We have 7 minutes left. Oh,
Can I add
Yes.
one thing? Speaking of name, I mean, Ngan, N-G-A-N. I grew up wanting to be Nancy, just for my convenience, everyone's convenience. But I did it because that's so much of who I am. And I think right now it's a very exciting time for us to really embrace our lived experiences, our upbringing, the diversity within our community. I think there's so much to celebrate. And because of my unique background, I feel so privileged to have been exposed to so many different things. I call myself a Southerner, so I understand what Southerners think, but I don't agree with them some of the time, most of the time. But it's that empathy that you develop by being exposed to different cultures and experiences.
okay. I think there was a question in the back right. Yes, sir. We're on 5 minutes, so we're going to wind this, give you a break.
Hello, everyone. I'm David Burke, Manager of Global Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion and Employee Programs from the Colgate-Palmolive Company. And I just wanted to say that 2 years ago, we implemented an ERG Leadership Recognition Award payment as well. And we've been paying our ERG leads. We expect them to have a 2-year assignment, so we've been paying them $3,000 over the course of that 2-year assignment, and it's been broken down into increments of $750. So if anyone wants to learn how we do it or get any information from me, I'd be more than happy to share that with you on that model.
Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Okay. Rapid round. I'm going to give you one sentence. Okay? One sentence
One
to
sentence.
finalize us out and give us the energy we need for the big fight. But what is one tip of a do or don't, as you've learned, kind of in your ERG, so that you can give a tip to the rest of the audience for? I'll give you.
I can start, and to our friends from Turner and for others that are kind of newer on the ERG journey, it's build a leadership service area. This is hard work, and it's work that's even harder when you do it yourself. And so the number one best use of what I tell people, my time and others that have been here on the journey for a long time, is to find others like us to carry the torch when we're gone or when we're tired and can't do more of it. So that would be my one.
My advice is just you know what? Get out of the echo chamber too. Try to invite allies, advocates, anyone that you know to join your programs, your events, because sadly, I don't think the anti-Asian hate will stop. We're seeing what's happening politically, anti-China sentiments. So the scapegoating, I don't think will go away. But so the work that you're doing is really important because, you know, you're dispelling the model minority myth, the perpetual foreigner myth, all of that. So just keep at it, even though the burnout is real. But I think that the rewards are when you actually see progress. And I, you know, over the past 3 years, I have seen progress. So bravo to you all.
I would just say follow your heart. It's hard work, but we're inventing it as we go, right? I don't think there's a rule book, or maybe there are some playbooks, but where I am, it's very much we're inventing it. So there's no wrong way or right way to do it, and the ripples, right? The little you do has a lot of consequences, a lot of positive consequences.
And for me, I have a 14-year-old daughter, and I don't want her to live the life that I've lived. It's been very lonely to be the only Asian in the room. And so I will give you a goal. You need to do this work to be up here, because I want to be in the audience. I don't want to be up here. I've been up here a lot, and it's my privilege. But Emma's growing up in a world, and it shouldn't look like the way it does today at the executive table. So help us, because I think this is all of our work together for the future generations and for the 4 of you that raised your hand on Generation Z. But I appreciate all that you're doing and the interest that you're showing, and I think we can do it. You just got to buckle up. Can I take a picture?
Thank you. Yeah,
Suba,
get a picture.
Suba with John. You are so modest. You're not even standing up. And Suba, we didn't applaud you, so I'd love to
Thank you. John, you're amazing. Come on up,
Okay,
John.
we have to take this photo. We have to, okay? Thank you for giving me the liberty to just be very casual with you.
Absolutely.